Welcome back, children, to this part of the video of the chapter The Enemy. Now we'll proceed further. In the previous videos, we discussed that Dr. Sadao met an enemy soldier and he starts treating him. He was also curious that he was an enemy and he must hand him over to the Japanese army. Then his conscience forces him and he starts treating the soldier at his home. His servants refuse to help him. Then only his wife Hannah helped him. So now let's move further. So when they brought the soldier home, Hannah cleaned the soldier and then Sadao started treating the soldier and injected a needle. After some time, by feeling the pulse, the Sadao understood that the man is going to live. The young man woke, so weak, his blue eyes so terrified. When he perceived where he was, that Hannah felt compelled to apologize. She herself served him, for none of the servant would enter the room. When she came in the first time, she saw him summon his small strength to be prepared for some fearful thing. Don't be afraid, she begged him softly. How come you speak English? He gasped. I was a long time in America, she replied. She saw that he wanted to reply to that, but he couldn't, and so she knelt and fed him gently from the porcelain spoon. He ate unwillingly, but still he ate. Now you'll soon be strong, she said, not liking him and yet moved to comfort him. He did not answer. So by now, the enemy had gained consciousness, and when gained consciousness, he woke up and he got afraid when he understood where he was. Then Hannah spoke to him in English, and then when it was asked by the American soldier, how do you know English? So Hannah replied, it was a long time in America which I spent. Then Hannah offered some food to the American soldier, and then he was unwilling to he was unwilling to eat, but he ate. You can imagine, children, why he was unwilling to eat, because he knew that he was with the enemies, but as the enemies were treating him, he ate the food. Then Hannah said that now you will become strong. When Sadao came in the third day after the operation, he found the young man sitting up, his face bloodless with the effort. Lie down, Sadao cried. Do you want to die? He forced the man down gently and strongly and examined the wound. You may kill yourself if you do this sort of thing, he scolded. What are you going to do with me? The boy muttered. He looked just now barely 17. Are you going to hand me over? For a moment, Sadao did not answer. He finished the examination and then pulled the silk quilt over the man. I do not know myself what I shall do with you, he said. I ought, of course, to give you to the police. You are a prisoner of war. No, do not tell me anything, he put up. So then Sadao came there, and the young man's face became bloodless. Why? Because he was afraid. Sadao said, lie down. Do you want to die? And then Sadao examined the wound of the soldier. The boy was anxious. Then he asked Sadao, what are you going to do with me? Are you going to hand me over to the Japanese army? So Sadao said, I don't know this time. But this time you lie down, because you are a prisoner of war. He put up his hand as he saw the young man was about to speak. Do not even tell me your name unless I ask. They looked at each other for a moment, and then the young man closed his eyes and turned his face to the wall. Okay, he whispered. his mouth a bitter line. Outside the door, Hannah was waiting for Sadao. He saw at once that she was in trouble. Sadao, Yumi tells me the servants feel they cannot stay if we hide this man here anymore. She said. She tells me that they are saying that you and I were so long in. So Sadao tells him that you are a prisoner of war. And then young man wanted to speak, but Sadao said, don't speak because I don't want to know your name even. Then Hannah told Sadao that you meet the servant and others are saying that if we give shelter to this man, they will not work for us. So that would say that we were in America that we have forgotten to think of our own country first. They think we like Americans. It is not true, Sadao said harshly. Americans are our enemies, but I have been trained not to let a man die if I can help it. The servants cannot understand that, she said anxiously. No, he agreed. Neither seemed able to say more, and somehow the household dragged on. The servants grew more watchful. Their courtesy ways was as careful as ever, but their eyes were cold upon the pair to whom they were hired. It is clear that a master ought to do. The old gardener said one morning he had worked with flowers all his life, and he had been a specialist too in moss. So, children, now as you can understand with these passages that the servants were going against Sadao and Hannah, as they were also nationalists, so they were against Sadao giving shelter to an American soldier. So that American soldier children was their enemy. And you know the gardener, he said that he had worked with flowers all life and he's specialist in moss. For Sadao's father, he had made one of the finest moss gardens in Japan, sweeping the bright green carpet constantly so that not a leaf or a pine needle marred the velvet of its surface. My old master's son knows very well what he ought to do, he now said, pinching a bud from bush as he spoke. When the man was so near the death, why did he not let him bleed? Gardner was against Sadao. He said that when the boy was already bleeding, why didn't Sadao kill him? It means all the servants were against Sadao. That young master is so proud of his skill to save life that he saves any life, the cook said contemptuously. She split a fowl's neck skillfully and held the fluttering bird and let its blood flow into the roots of a wisteria of vine. Blood is the best of fertilizers, and the old gunner would not let her waste a drop of it. So what the cooks did, cook just cut the neck of a hen and dropped the blood of that hen into the roots of a climber. Climber means plant. And said, blood is the best of fertilizers. An old gunner would not let her waste a drop of it. Children, don't you understand what these servants are thinking, what they are planning? It is the children of whom we must think, Yumi said sadly. What will be their fate if their father is condemned as a traitor? They did not try to hide what they said from the ears of Hannah as she stood arranging the day's flowers in the veranda nearby. And she knew they spoke on purpose that she might hear. That they were right, she knew too in most of her being, but there was another part of her which she herself could not understand. It was not sentimental, lacking of the prisoner. She had come to think of him as a prisoner. She had not liked him even yesterday. But Yumi, the maid's servant, she said to other servants, the cook and the gardener, that before reporting this to the Japanese soldier, we must think of the children. What will happen if the master, Sadao and Hannah, would be in prison? What will happen to these children? So you can see, children, Yumi was a little bit kind and considerate. So They didn't try to hide what they said from the ears of Hannah. It means children were the most important for Yumi. At Yumi and other servants, they did not hide their feelings about the prisoner. Hannah was also not sentimental about the prisoner. She did not like him as she did yesterday when he had said in his impulsive way, "Anyway, let me tell you that my name is Tom." She had only bowed her little distant bow. She saw hurt in his eyes, but she did not wish to assuage it. Indeed, he was a great trouble in this house. As for Sadao, every day he examined the wounds carefully, the last stitches he had been pulled out this morning, and the young man would, in a fortnight, be nearly as well as ever. Sadao went back to his office and carefully typed a letter to the chief of police reporting the whole matter. On the 21st day of February, an escaped prisoner was washed up on the shore in front of my house. So far he typed, and then he opened a secret drawer of his desk and put the unfinished report into it. So, the soldier had told his name as Tom. He himself told the name to Hannah. Hannah did not wish to listen to the name, but she bowed. Bow means greeting. Greetings were exchanged between the soldier and Hannah, but she did not like the soldier. Sadao, after stitching the wounds, he wrote a letter. And what was written on the letter? On the 21st day of February, an escaped prisoner was washed up on the shore in front of my house. And then he finished the letter. And actually, he kept the unfinished report in his secret drawer. On the seventh day after that, two things happened. In the morning, the servants left together, their belongings tied in large square cotton kerchiefs. When Hannah got up in the morning, nothing was done. The house not clean and the food not prepared, and she knew what it meant. She was dismayed and even terrified. But her pride as a mistress would not allow her to show it. Instead, she inclined her head gracefully when they appeared before her in the kitchen, and she paid them off and thanked them for all that they had done for her. They were crying, but she did not cry. The cook and the gardener had served Sadao since he was a little boy in his father's house, and Amy cried because of the children. She was so grieving that after she had gone, she ran back to Hannah. So on the seventh day, what happened, children? As you can see, and you have heard also, that all the servants left Sadao and Hannah. They were crying, but Hannah did not cry. Yumi was crying so much that even when all the servants went away, she ran back to Hannah. "If the baby misses me too much tonight, send for me. I am going to my own house, and you know where it is." "Thank you," Hannah said, smiling. But she told herself she would not send for Yumi, however, the baby cried. She made the breakfast and Sadao helped with the children. Neither of them spoke of the servants beyond the fact that they were gone. But after Hannah had taken morning food to the prisoner, she came back to Sadao. "Why is it we cannot see clearly what we ought to do?" she asked him. "Even the servants see more clearly than we do. Why are we different from other Japanese?" Sadao did not answer, but a little later he went into the room where the prisoner was and said brusquely. So Yumi just requested the Hannah that if the child cries, you just call me. But Hannah was sure, even bitterly, if the child cries, I'm not going to call Yumi. Now those servants had gone. Hannah prepared breakfast for Sadao and herself. Now they were thinking that their servants are clear about their thoughts. Why are they not clear about the thoughts? Sometimes they are thinking they are nationalists, Japanese, and sometimes they are thinking they are doctors. You may get up on your feet. I want you to stay up only 5 minutes at a time. Tomorrow you may try it twice as long. It would be well that you get back your strength as quickly as possible. He saw the flicker of terror on the young face that was still very pale. Okay, the boy murmured. Evidently, he was determined to say more. I feel I ought to thank you, doctor, for having saved my life. Don't thank me too early, Sadao said coldly. He saw the flicker of terror in the boy's eyes, terror as unmistakable as an animal's. The scars on his neck were crimson for a moment. Those scars, what were they? Sadao did not ask. So now Sadao said to the soldier that tomorrow you can stand and walk for 5 minutes, then you can increase the time day by day. Now, Tom, the American soldier, wanted to be thankful to Sadao and Hannah, but Sadao said, don't be thankful so early. And this expression of Sadao put Tom into fear. In the afternoon, the second thing happened. Hannah, working hard on unaccustomed labor, saw a messenger come to the door in official uniform. Her hands went weak, and she could not draw her breath. The servants must have told already. She ran to Sadao, gasping, unable to utter a word. But by then the messenger had simply followed her to the garden, and there he stood. She pointed at him helplessly. Sadao looked up from his book. He was in his office, the other partition of which was thrown up into the garden for the southern sunshine. So in the afternoon, something happened. A messenger came to the house of Sadao and Hannah, and he was in official dress. Now, Hannah and Sadao doubted that maybe servants have told everything about this American soldier. Sadao was in his reading room and in his office. What is it? He asked the messenger, and then he rose, seeing the man's uniform. You are come to the palace, the man said. The old general is in pain again. Oh, Hannah breathed. Is that all? All, the messenger exclaimed. Is it enough? Indeed it is, she replied. I am very sorry. When Sadao came to say goodbye, she was in the kitchen, but doing nothing. The children were asleep, and she sat merely resting for a moment, more exhausted from her fright than from her work. The children, when the messenger informed that the general is in pain and he has called upon the doctor, Hannah sighed with relaxation. She said, That's all. That's all you want to say. Messenger said, Yes. Actually, Hannah was doubtful if the servants had said anything, but she was thankful to the servants that they had not told anything. Children, here you can understand the mentality of the servants also. Although they were truly nationalists, as you can just go back to the previous part where the gardener and the cook were strongly against the Sadao. But why didn't they tell? Because they also realized the feeling of humanity. That's why they did not inform to the authority. And then when Sadao came to say goodbye, she was in the kitchen but doing nothing. So Sadao then wished goodbye to the messenger, and the children were asleep at that time. I thought they had come to arrest you, she said. He gazed down into her anxious eyes. I must get rid of this man for your sake, he said in distress. Somehow I must get rid of him. Thou goes to see the general. Of course, the general said weakly. I understand fully, but that is because I once took a degree in Princeton, so few Japanese have. I care nothing for the man, Excellency, Sadao said, but having operated on him with such success. Yes, yes, the general said. It only makes me feel you more dispensable to me. Evidently, you can save anyone. You are so skilled. You say you think I can stand one more such attack as I have had today? So now Sadao goes to the general. Now there is discussion between general and the Sadao. So the general says, of course, I understand. Because I also took a degree from Princeton. And few Japanese have that thing. I care nothing for the man, Excellency, Sadao said, but having operated on with success. Sadao said, sir, I don't care for the man, but I have operated on him. General said, yes, yes, it only makes you feel you more dispensable to me. Evidently, you can save anyone. You are skilled. So, General says that only you are skilled, not more than one. Sadao said. Children, actually, General was talking about Sadao. That as Sadao took degree from America, General also took degree from Princeton. But Sadao understood that the general was talking about the American soldier. So what he said, sir, I have operated upon him, but with such success. But actually, children, general was talking about Sadao. And then when general said, evidently you can save anyone. You are so skilled. You say you think I can stand one more attack I have had today? Not more than one, Sadao said. So Sadao said, sir, you can't stand more than one attack now. Then certainly I can allow nothing to happen to you, the general said with anxiety. His long pale Japanese face became expressionless, which meant that he was in deep thought. You cannot be arrested, the general said, closing his eyes. Suppose you are condemned to death, and the next day I had to have my operation. The general said that, okay, it means I cannot arrest you. I cannot put you to death. Because if I put you to death, if something happens to you, then what I will do? There are other surgeons, Excellency, Sadao suggested. None I trust, General replied. The best ones have been trained by Germans and would consider the operation successful even if I died. I do not care for their point of view. He sighed. It seems a pity that we cannot better combine the German ruthlessness with the American sentimentality. Then you could turn your prisoner over to execution, and yet I could be sure you would not murder me while I was unconscious. The general laughed. He had an unusual sense of humor. As a Japanese could you not combine these two foreign elements? He asked. So, I think General knew about the American soldier. He said that when Sadao said, sir, you can arrest me and kill me. Other surgeons are there who will treat you. Sadao said, yes, they are there, but they are trained by Germans, and those surgeons will consider the operation successful if I die. But Germans are ruthless and Americans are sentimental. So, but I feel that you will mix both the things. General laughed. As a Japanese, you could not combine these two foreign elements. Thou smiled. I'm not quite sure, sir. He said, but for your sake, I would be willing to try, Excellency. The general shook his head. I had rather not be the test case, he said. He felt suddenly weak and overwhelmed with the cares of his life as an official in times such as these when repeated victory brought great responsibilities all over. The children, that you can understand that General was not able to take any step against Sadao because he knew that only Sadao was there who can treat him. No other surgeon is there. So he was indecisive actually. It is very unfortunate that this man should have washed up on your doorsteps, he said irritably. I feel it so myself, Sadao said gently. It would be best if he could be quietly killed, the general said, not by you, but by someone who does not know him. I have my own private assassins. Suppose I send two of them to your house tonight for better. Any night, you need know nothing about it. It is now warm. What would be more natural than that you should leave the outer partition of the white man's room open to the garden while he sleeps? So, children, as Sadao himself told about the American soldier, so General said, okay, I cannot not put you in prison. I cannot even kill you because you are the only surgeon. But I can help you out in another way. I will send assassins. Assassins means killers or murderers. You just keep open the door of the American prisoners' room, and my assassins will do their work. It means they will kill the American soldier without making a noise. So Sadao said, certainly it would be very natural. Sadao agreed. In fact, it is so left open every night. Good, the general said, yawning. So Gandalf said, okay, tonight or in 1 2 nights, I will send my assassins. They are very capable assassins. They make no noise and they know the trick of inward bleeding. If you like, I can even have them remove the body. So thou considered that perhaps would be best. Excellency, he agreed, thinking of Hannah. He left the general's presence then and went home, thinking over the plan. In this way, the whole thing would be taken out of his hands. He would tell Hannah nothing, since she would be timid at the idea of assassins in the house. And yet, certainly, such persons were essentials in an absolute state such as Japan was. How else could rulers deal with those who opposed them? So, while returning home from the palace, Sadao was thinking that he should not tell about the assassins to Hannah because she will become afraid. He refused to allow anything but reason to be the atmosphere of his mind as he went into the room where the American was in bed. But as he opened the door, to his surprise, he found the young man out of bed and preparing to go into the garden. What is this? He exclaimed. Who gave you permission to leave your room? I'm not used to waiting for permission, Tom said gaily. Gosh, I feel pretty good again. But will the muscles on this side always feel stiff? Is it so? Sadao inquired, surprised. He forgot all else. Now I thought I had provided against that. He murmured. He lifted the edge of man's shirt and gazed at the healing wound. So when he came back to the room, he saw the American soldier was going up to the garden. Sadao inquired, who gave you permission to go to the garden? So Tom said, or the American soldier said, I don't want permission. But see, doctor, my this side of the muscle is paining. So forgetting everything else, Sadao lifted the man's shirt and gazed at the healing scar. So children, this thing shows that Sadao was more concerned as a doctor than as a nationalist. So children, that's all in this video, and rest part will be continued in last video. Thank you.